And welcome to another episode of The Educator's Voice. I am your host, Frederick Keenan, and I have another special guest with me today. Another coworker, actually. We had a coworker on the first episode that we did, but there's another coworker of mine that works with me at Sparmer Community College. And so I'm not going to do a bio. I'm going to let her introduce herself. That's one of the first things that we do on our show. But I will tell you that her name is LaTanya Mays, and she is a coworker from Sparmer Community College with me. So everybody, welcome LaTanya Mays.
Thank you.
All right. So first question, as we get into the profile or the bio, I should say, tell us about you and your current position. Well, not necessarily about you, but just not yet, but just about your current position. Like, what are you doing now? What is your work at SEC? What do you teach? That kind of thing.
Yes, so I am an educator. I currently teach college skills. I also teach English and reading as well on a college level.
Okay. And just for the sake of continuing the conversation along that same line, can you tell us a little bit about your history or your upbringing, so to speak? I mean, I don't, you don't have to tell us about, everything from the time you were born to now, but just give us a brief synopsis of maybe your upbringing in your childhood and how you became to be involved in education at all.
Okay. I went to Newberry College and I earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in English. When I first went there, I was actually in elementary ed and changed my major to
Hmm.
English, not really knowing where I was going. It was just, I loved English and that's what I did. But when I graduated, because I just had an English degree, I did not look at going into teaching. I actually
Hmm.
just, got a job and went to work. And it was one day at the blue, I got a call from a high school in Abbeville County to teach. So I've taught on a high school level. I've taught eighth and ninth grade English. Um, but that didn't, last long because the school actually closed down as a public school. So I went back working at Verizon in the call center, but I did some training. So still kind of teaching. I did some training there at Verizon and got laid off there, stay at home mom, and then I got the call for Spartanburg Community College. So that's
Wow.
where and how I ended up here. Really, once I graduated college, didn't really think about teaching, just getting a degree in English.
So what were you going to do with your degree in English if it wasn't going to be in teaching?
That's probably going to be on in the podcast, but for me, I was just trying to get a degree.
Okay.
At 22, 23,
Mm-hmm.
what I would be doing at 40 just wasn't, you know,
Sure.
I'm just getting a degree. That's what I just came here just to get a degree. So English, I loved it. I was good at it. It was the fastest way to a degree. So that's where I didn't have any plan with it, to be honest.
Sure.
Um,
Okay. And then the heavens opened up and there was a phone call and
yes,
okay.
yes. There was a phone call, and here I am now on a college level, right? Teaching students, to look at their careers and teaching them English and reading and, you
Yeah.
know,
There was something interesting you said in that. You said that you worked in I think I heard you say you worked on a call center for
hmm
Verizon.
hmm
And then you got laid off from that job, which
hmm
put you into getting that phone call or projected into the teaching field. Is that
I was laid off in December the 31st, and I
okay?
was a stay at home mom.
Okay.
So I had just had my second child. So I was a stay at home mom and for like 7 months. And, I was actually, well, you know the story, but I was actually, with a friend and your wife and got the call from, our boss, our current boss.
Yeah.
And, you
Yeah.
know, I'm assuming I had maybe put an application in while I was a stay at home mom. I really don't remember, but I would have had to do that.
Yeah.
But it was not, I was not looking for a job at that time. It just, as you said, the heavens opened up and
Yeah.
the call was made at the right time, at the right moment, with the right people, and
There you
here I
go.
am.
So
That
I'm
was
glad
back in 2016.
and I'm glad you said that because I think, and I don't know the whole story. My wife is down the hall, and she could probably tell us the whole story. But I think she said something to you
hmm
about Ann Jones, about something, and I think that prompted you to go and apply or do whatever. And Then
Yeah.
again, there
So
you
I
were.
was at a friend's job. We were
Hmm.
at the Sickle Cell Foundation, and
Hmm.
Ann Jones, our current boss, called, and I just I missed the call, and she left a voicemail, and I didn't even know your wife, but we were all in the same room, and I made the comment. I was like, Ann Jones just called me about a job at Spartanburg Community College, and she was like, wait a minute, Ann Jones. That's my husband's boss. And I was like, oh, yeah, let's talk about this thing. So,
Right. Right.
yeah, so it was just, we were, never met her. And we were just together in that room at that moment, and me just
Hmm.
speaking that name, and she knew. So that was, and here I am.
That's interesting because I just left before I got on here with you. I was at the Viking Early College pinning ceremony,
Hmm.
and Dr. Booker was the guest speaker, and he was talking about connections, and he was talking
Yeah.
about being well connected and how
Hmm.
things sometimes happen just because you happen to know the right person. And so that in kind of a way is an illustration of what you just described, which is just so happened you said the name Ann Jones, and my wife heard that name, and before you
Hmm.
know it, there was this connection that ended up
Right.
being good for you that you
Right.
got into the job. So good stuff.
I definitely believe in connections.
Yeah, most definitely. And that is one of
Mhm.
the things that happens in life, that you get those good connections that can help you prepare you to success. So another thing you said, it was interesting. I did not realize that we had this in common. I also worked at a call center. I
Hmm.
worked at a call center for Milliken and Company for 13 years.
Okay.
And then I got laid off
Yeah.
from a call center. And then that's how I got into teaching. So
Okay.
we have that in common, that we both worked at call centers and eventually got laid off. And some kind of way being laid off helped us get into teaching. So
Right.
yeah. All right. So let me just, I'm gonna give you the next part of this is I'm gonna give you my opinion about what we kind of came on here to talk about in the first place, which is education, K through 12, but also into higher ed. And so I may have shared this with you before. I think we might have talked somewhere before about this, but I'm just gonna share it again. Um, I have been in education for about 8 years, as you know. Um, did not plan to be a teacher either. I have a master's degree in business administration. I was supposed to be doing business stuff, right? But some kind of way, I wound up being a teacher. So I have had since my journey, and a lot of people don't like that word journey, but my journey in education has been a little bit. I don't want to use the word unfulfilled because I love the classroom, but I think I mentioned to you that I don't feel like it has served me 100% well, and it has prompted me to think about the way we teach K through 12, the way we teach the kids, what are we teaching them, and if what we're teaching them is going to help them when they become adults, right? I think I might have joked with you or either Shamaica one that said, is anybody going to ask you to do a trigonometry problem when you go get a job in the real world? No.
Right.
Is anybody going to ask you if you know about the MLA or APA format when you go get a job? No. So the things that we are pushing upon these children, teaching these children in such a standardized way, is it going to be something that's going to be valuable? And so that's been my stance. That's been my disappointment with education, and even into higher ed, even the stuff we teach in college skills. We have to ask ourselves: is this really helping them that they know what a library is? Right? Is it really helping them to know what a TLC is? Right? Is that really beneficial for the success of their lives? And so the question I'm posing, getting to here, is that I want you to express your opinions about the current state of K through 12 education since you've taught in it before, if you think it's valuable, and also since you're teaching the higher ed level, do you think the things that we teach in there are valuable? Can you speak on that for a second?
Yeah. So, if you would have asked me this probably 20 years ago, my answer would have been absolutely not. Coming into college, right out of high school, I really, I just went because everybody was doing it. It's like that's the tradition, right? It's either my dad gave me the option. You go to college, you go in the military, you go to work, right? Um, so I didn't see the benefit. Why did I have to take a math class? I don't know. I'm not good at math, don't like it. You know, so I think there should be some type of, I'm not going to say catering, but there should be, to each student, they're different and their
Mm-hmm.
needs are different.
Mm-hmm.
So to have everyone do the same thing, to learn the same thing, may not be the best, because then you get to us as first year college students, and there is a disconnect. There
Mm-hmm.
is a disconnect because you always hear, I'm an English instructor, so I always hear, I'm not good at English. I like math. I'm not good at English. And they have no interest in learning English. So I think yes, is education valuable? Yes, it is. But I think it's only going to be as good as someone accepts. And if they don't want to do it, if they don't like it, how much are they really getting
Yeah.
out of it?
Yeah.
And I guess that's the good thing about college in a way. You get to choose your major, and you'll see students once they get in their major, they love it, right? Because they're learning things that they're interested in. But sitting in a college skills class or sitting in a first year English class, some of them just don't take out of it. I was looking at my evaluations, and one of my students put on their evaluations. I love the instructors. She was wonderful, but I don't see the point of this class. I wish it
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
So how much did they take out of it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
I've been often caught, I shouldn't say caught, but I've been often found saying to my students, everybody doesn't need to be here. And that's just a fact. I mean, if you're not going to come into college and apply the principles the way they should be applied, then you don't need to be here. You need to go do something else. But let me say this, because, and I'm learning this as I do these interviews and have this conversation, is that college is not about trigonometry.
mhm,
College is not about MLA, APA format. College is not about any of the academic stuff. And that sounds very strange for some people to hear that maybe,
mhm,
but it's really not about the academics. It's more about, can I go to a space and open my mind to learning? Can I be put in a room or a situation where I'm willing to be a lifelong learner?
right.
Because education can happen beyond just the four walls of a school.
Hmm.
Education can happen on a YouTube channel. Education can happen
Hmm.
reading a book or learning a new skill, or doing something like that. So education doesn't have to be just in a school. So if you're not coming with that mindset of using the school system as just a tool or a jump start to get you into being a lifelong learner, then you're not going to be very successful in college, and it's not going to be beneficial or valuable to you. Do you think that's accurate?
I do in a way, because I mean, just thinking back to my freshman year, I was that student that, again, this may sound bad, but I was not there for the right reason. I think I was smart enough to make it, but
Mm-hmm.
I think back, if I would have applied, or if I would have been that student that understood, now that I'm 40, what I know now. But
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't. I was one of those students that wasn't there. If it was raining, I didn't go to class. I was
Right.
that student.
Right.
So my freshman year, I got on the
Well, I think that's
bandwagon.
the truth for everybody in their freshman year. For a
Yeah,
lot of students, not everybody, but for a lot of students,
yeah.
yeah.
But I do agree that a lot of students may not take much of the academic portion out of our classes. Um, but as I see you put, like with your students, they may take something else that you said, something about that Dillard shirt. I'll be interested to hear about that. But something, just even if it's a mentor, or something that they see you, Mr. Keenan, wears the funky socks, and it's something more, that's the fulfilling, that I get out of teaching. Is something more
Mm-hmm.
than just teaching them how to write a sentence at
Mm-hmm.
20 years old. That is more than that. It's the light bulb. Is that feeling? Is when they keep coming back and saying, how much you've impacted them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think college, I do think education is more than just teaching them what's in the book. It's teaching
Yeah.
them life.
And I think you're hitting on something that's very, very important, because I think if school is going to be effective and impactful, we've
Hmm.
got to stop focusing in on the things that are the small potatoes. Like, yes, I know a child or a student needs to learn how to write a professional paper. That's vital tool set or
Hmm.
skill set to have, right? But more importantly, though, can this kid be inspired to be creative? Can this student be inspired by something like you just said that I did or you did in a classroom, that makes them then go home and say, you know what, I'm going to start this new business now, or I'm going to start a podcast or a YouTube channel, or I'm going to create this this widget or whatever. Now I'm going to sell it and be entrepreneurial and make millions of dollars. College should be a place where we can create creativity and
Hmm.
not just make everybody the standard of what we think
Hmm.
normal should be. If we're making it the standard of what we think normal should be, then we are failing our college students, and not only college students, but I think our K through 12 students as well. Shameka, like was on a couple of days ago, and she had a really cool idea. And maybe we'll actually make this happen. She said that maybe by the time they get to like sixth grade, when they've learned all the basic skills of the
Mhm.
reading, the writing, and arithmetic, so to speak, by then you probably learned most of what you need to know. Maybe we ask the children as they go into seventh grade, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
Okay. And maybe we start giving them classes or creating classes that goes towards that bent or that
Hmm.
path. Like, for example, if I have a kid that wants to be into welding, okay, then let's put him in all the welding classes starting at sixth, seventh grade. And push him towards that path and stop teaching him based on just some standard that he's supposed to know something because he's in the seventh grade. I think that's how we should approach education. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
I definitely agree, and leave it up to Jamaica to come up with these wonderful ideas. But um, like I said, when I went in school, I was education, and I just picked that just because, right? Um, how many people really know what they want to do or what they want to become? There are a handful, but I think getting them young, because if you do put that student in welding and then they say, maybe this is not what I want to do, there's time to, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
let's move over here. I think that's a good idea because seventh grade, they're still just going to that English class, going to that math class, going to that science class, and when does the conversation about careers really begin? Like really, really begin? About senior year, maybe.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so I think that's an amazing idea,
yeah.
getting them exposed early.
Most definitely. Now, this is the last because I want to belabor this before I move to the next question. But one other thing I'll mention along the line of this about college being valuable, you do realize, and I know you do, like a lot of folks, and a lot of folks would say college is not valuable because of this, because there are people out there in the world who are doing entrepreneurial stuff that are making 60, 70, $80,000 in a month, right? There's people now on stages. I mean, just what we're doing right here on the YouTube channel, which is what this will eventually be posted on. YouTube will pay you money to get a certain following and just send you a check.
Hmm.
There are lots of other fields and training, and my wife likes to say a trade that you can put your hands on something, and you don't even have to go to a 4 year college to do that. And so a lot of folks would say that's why college is not valuable because we live in a totally different age, and maybe that's why we need to change some things in education. I mean, do you think that's also true?
I do think it's true about the 4 year college, and maybe it's because I teach at a 2 year college, but I think the push when I was younger was that you went to a 4 year college. But now, as you stated, some people can come to a 2 year college or go through their vocational schools during high school and come out making more than we're making, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when you think about like the social media or influencers, how long does that last? I really don't know, but how long will that last before they move on to something else? So I think it's still good, even if you're making a lot now, to still have a foundation. Is that a 4 year college? Maybe, maybe not. I wish I would have went to Spartanburg Community College or technical college when I went. It is a 2 year school is thriving now, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
come out of Spartanburg Community College making more than your instructors, making more than
Mm-hmm.
those students going to these 4 year colleges with all these student loans. So I think times are changing, and I think when you look at this is going down a whole different road. But when you're thinking about the price of college
Mm-hmm.
versus how much you come out of college making,
Mm-hmm.
some people do need to look at what are you majoring in. Is that going to bring enough money to pay those student loans off? um, can I go to a school that's offering free tuition for 2 years, or can I go before I graduate high school to a vocational school and start working? And I think that brings us back to everybody is different. So one person, every scenario is going to be different for a person.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of Newberry versus, it just, mm, I, everybody is different. Every scenario is different. But I
Sure.
think the value is in a 2 year a school or a vocational school in high school if you're not looking to graduate a 4 year college, coming out the door making money to, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Now you mentioned something too that you said that may not be on the topic, but it kind of is because another aspect of the value of college is the fact that you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to go into student loan debt and then wind up graduating college and working at Walmart.
Hmm.
There are several college graduates who are working beneath. Matter of fact, there was a stat, I can't remember the stat now, but it's like over 50%, I believe, of people that graduate from college are working in underqualified jobs, which means they're not even using their college degree. That's over 50%,
Hmm.
according to that stat. So I'm going to college, spend all this money, 4 years into college, right? I get out of college and I'm doing something that's less than or not even in the career that I chose to do in the first place. That's a waste. And if we don't catch that on the front end, we have a lot of people that are wasting their time with that. And another thing I will interject with that same mindset is, and I mentioned this with Shameka and with Mr. Dawkins, this 40-40 plan. That's what I call it. The 40-40 plan, which is when schools were first created, it was all about teaching people how to get in school, get a job, right? We go to school so we can get a good job. That's what we've always been taught since we were young. You go to school, get good grades so you can get a good job. But everything we're teaching them leads to them getting a job. But if I teach them to get a job and now I teach them to work 40 hours a week for 40 years of their lives just so I can retire with a pension plan, what kind of life is that? Right? But I put them on that same path that we put everybody on, which is go to school so you can get a good job. That kills that mindset of what if you want to create something for yourself? What if you don't want to work for someone else? Those things need to be taught in school as well, and that's very, very important. I think if we focus on those things, we're going to have a better educational system. So, all right, let me ask you something that's a little bit different off the subject here, not off the
Okay.
subject, but just take another turn. As you know, schools are closing left or right. I'm not sure what the stats are now, but there are a lot of teachers who are leaving the profession. There are a lot of schools who are, like I said, I think closing or whatever. But what do you think some of the main factors are for causing teachers to leave the teaching profession? What are the main things that you think are the reasons why folks are quitting?
Um, I would have to say when I'm not in K through 12, but I do have two children that are. In just going to their schools, I would have to say the pay and the students and parents. It's not just the students; it's the students
Okay.
and parents. I just honestly not. We're not even talking about a college level yet, but just K through 12. As you said, I mean, some of them can go get a job at a call center,
Mm-hmm.
making more with less stress,
Mm-hmm.
without the misbehaving of the students and the discipline, the cell phones now. I mean, just the drama of social media in the classroom, the
Mm-hmm.
cheating, the parents, all of the lesson plans and meetings. I'm just thinking back to my days teaching at a high school. Some people can really, well, I did it. After I, left my school in Abbeville, I went to Verizon making more than I was making teaching in the eighth and ninth grade class without, and I just worked and I went home, you know. So I think that could be a lot of it. And even on our level, we say that we're educators, that we're teaching on a college level, but some of us, as far as the money, now we don't have to, talk to parents and things like that. But for what we do and the value that we, instill in our students' lives, I sometimes you wonder, are we valued,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's why, as far as especially the K through 12 teachers.
I think that's a common theme for the reasons why folks are leaving the educational system as far as teachers, particularly K through 12.
Hmm.
I had a K through 12 teacher say to me that she remembers one time in a classroom where a student actually threw a desk at her.
Believe it. I believe
and,
it.
and other things that she shared with me about what happened inside the classroom, and the fact that once you go and talk to the parents about things like that, they don't support you. They say their child is not wrong, and
Not
you,
my child.
yeah, not my baby. I know my baby didn't do that. And so there's no support, not even from the parents or a lot of times the administrative folks above. And so here you have this teacher in the classroom who's struggling, who's hurting, who's frustrated, who's aggravated, who really wants to bring value to this classroom and loves the kids, but is not being supported in that way. And I think that's probably the main, if not one of the most important reasons why folks are saying, you know what, I'm done. I'll go work for Verizon or somebody else before I take this kind of abuse. So saying that, and this may be putting you on the spot a little bit, but so saying that, what do we do to fix that? Or is there anything that we can, if that is the reason why they're leaving, and it may not be a fix for this. Maybe it's just that if you feel like leaving, you just need to get out of the profession altogether. But is there something that anyone outside of the classroom could do to assist in that or to help that problem if that's the reason they're leaving? Anything that we could do?
Oh man. Oh man. Um, yeah, I would like to hear Lyman Dawkins, response to that. Me looking in. Now, granted, we had our, fights and things like that in school, but I think, and I'm just speaking from a parent,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just when the cell phones came. I don't know. It's just a different generation.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't know, I don't have an answer on how to solve it.
Yeah.
Of course, is the normal. It starts at home,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but when you think about it, some students don't have a home. So I
Yeah.
I can remember my teachers loving on me, and but now you can't even hug these students
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah.
I can remember sitting on my teachers' laps and playing in their hair, and just knowing that I was loved. Was something. And I had a home with two parents, so I think it is something bigger than.
Well,
I
I
don't
think
know.
you kind of tapped into it, and then, again, there is no fix. I kind of put you on the spot there with that question, but there is no real fix for it. But I think you kind of touched on the fact that it becomes more of a societal problem.
Yes.
It becomes more of a problem
Mhm.
with the way, the kinds and the types of parents that we have now, the
Yes.
generation of parents that we have now
Hmm.
that will fight tooth and nail to defend their little Johnny, who
Hmm.
is bad as all fire.
Hmm.
But she says, no, ain't nothing wrong with my baby. And you mentioned something about the fact that schools used to be different in the respect that it was a place that kids could go and get loved on and get
Hmm.
cared about. Parents, I mean, not parents, but teachers would go to the homes of parents and
Right.
sit down and have
Hmm.
conversation with them about the children, and everybody was
Hmm.
on the same page. You mentioned you sitting in a teacher's lap and playing in their hair.
Hmm.
You definitely
Yeah.
can't do that nowadays. You do that
No.
now. I
No.
remember a story of a guy, a black man. There was a black teacher that had some young females
Taking
in
down
his
his hair.
classroom taking down his hair,
Hmm.
and he got like totally blasted on social media
He was
because
fired, I think.
he was fired because it was just inappropriate and all this kind of stuff. So you're right. We live in a different societal age, and I think that feeds into the problems that we're seeing once we go to the school. And so the only way to fix that is to fix society, which would be really, really hard to do. So as
Right.
educators, we have to find ways, and we have to come up with these creative ways to say, okay, I know this kid came in this way, but what can I do while I have them for this hour and 20 minutes or whatever to make their lives better? And the last thing I'll say is I think that, to wrap it up, I think that what I'm hearing in this whole entire conversation is we've got to stop focusing on just the academics so much when it comes to educating our children, but also focusing on how do we make things creative for them? How do we find that niche that this one child is unique from the other child and pointing them in that direction, because they're likely not to get that at home, right? We have to be the ones as educators to find that in that child and then fuel that fire to make them want to burn in passion to go towards it. And that's the job of an educator. And again, if you're not ready for that job, you probably need to find something else to do. And that's okay. Everybody's not ready for that job. So, all right, final thing, and I'll let you slide out of here. Any final thoughts on anything we've said about education? Any final thoughts about what your feelings are about where it's headed, what can be improved in your own mind? Like I said, Miss Rice came with some ideas and suggestions. Anything you can say to kind of wrap it up for us on those thoughts?
I will say that K through 12 is you know is a lot different than where we are, right? So we get these students, and they are considered adults. So our classroom may look a little different than what they have. I'm hoping that someone
Hmm.
looks at just the education system, and as you said, math, maybe you don't have to do trig or cal, but you need to know how to write a sentence.
Yeah,
We used to have spelling tests. Now Siri spells everything for you.
that's
um,
right.
so I don't have the answers,
Hmm.
But whenever they do come to my class, whether they can write a sentence or, whether they are creative or whether they know how to be organized, um, I think it's my job to instill something in them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, whether it's time management or whether it's a comma, instill something in them that they can take out, in life.
Mm-hmm.
Once they leave me, what have I done for them? How did
Mm-hmm.
I impact their lives? Even the laziest student to the smartest student, what did I do for them? And if it was nothing, then what am I doing?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my thing. Is some of these things are out of our control.
Most definitely.
I'm just uh, a full time college skills instructor that happen to teach English and reading. But while I'm here,
Yeah.
and when they do come into my class, or even if they're not in my class, because I run into students that are not, what can I do for them? How
Mm-hmm.
can I impact them? And maybe just something that I say, something that I can do can help them, and just helping, one at a time can help change our world, can help change our society. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how I look at it. Sometimes we do get frustrated,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, we can only do what we can do, and we just got to do it
As
the
best
best
we
we can.
can.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, and
Well,
just reach as many.
I'll tell you a couple of things, and then we'll wrap it up for sure here. So there was one instructor that I talked to about education, about the classroom, and she mentioned to me, she was talking about her upbringing and how she was brought up and all these different things. And she said to me that school for her, when she was coming up, because she came from a very kind of rough background, drugs, alcohol in her neighborhood, and all that kind of stuff, right? So she said when she would come to school, though, school was her safe space.
Mm,
She could come to school and it was safe there for her. And so I think if we create that kind of environment as
mhm,
educators, we've reached the children, whether we
mhm.
teach them trig, cal, or even how to write a sentence, right? A bigger picture here is what did I do to inspire their lives, to touch
Right.
them, to make them want to be better people. I'll end with this, and I keep saying it, but I'm going to definitely end with this one because I was in Walmart. I posted this on my Facebook page
Uh-huh.
today, I think. I was in Walmart and I heard somebody say, "Hey, Mr. Keenan," which I do, and I'm sure you do too. We hear that all
Yeah.
the time. We're out in the public. It's like we're rock stars or something, right?
Right.
So hey, Mr. Keenan, and I walk up to him and I approach him and I embrace him, and he has on this BMW shirt, and I knew obviously he works for BMW. So I started to inquire, remind me your name, tell me what year I had you. He said, well, it's back in 2017 or 2018. And we talked, and he's been over to England. He's traveled over to England to get trained up in BMW, doing well. Had his, I guess, his girlfriend, wife, friend, or whatever with him there. And he said, Miss Keenan, I got my Dillard shirt, right? I got my Dillard shirt. And if you haven't had my class, you don't know what Dillard shirt is. I have to tell y'all that maybe some other time, but it's
Okay.
one of the things that I teach in my class about getting that Dillard shirt. It's how I approach teaching. It's not about academics. It's not about passing a test. It's about that Dillard shirt. And all my students know what that means. So it really touched my heart to know that he remembered after 7 years
Mm-hmm.
that he got his Dylan shirt,
Got it.
right? And then he turned around to his friend and said, "Oh yeah, this is the guy I used to tell you about all those years. This is Miss Keene. I used to tell him about all the time about the Dylan shirt." And he went on and she just smiled and shook my hand. So in that one moment, I understood that education, and this is the
Yeah.
whole entire point. It's not about trig, it's
Mm-hmm.
not about calculus, it's not about MLA, APA format. It's what we pour inside these people. It's what
Right.
we get a chance to do with something that may be outside of academics, that it will inspire them and motivate them to go do something great with their lives. If we begin to see education in that way and stop trying to focus on a standardized test and who didn't
Mm-hmm.
pass it, right? If we stop
Mm-hmm.
focusing on that and focus on the individual person, education is going to be better. And as soon as our legislators understand that and appreciate what we do in that setting, education is going to get better. And I believe that. So that's where we will end it. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, LaTanya. I
Thank you so much
appreciate
for
it.
having me.
This has been the Educator's Voice. If you are an educator and you would like to come on the show to maybe share your thoughts or have your voice be heard, if you've got some great ideas or you just want to come on and just have a conversation, please let me know. You can like, share, hit the notify, do all that stuff that you do for YouTube stuff. And we will have another interview, I think, coming up the next couple of weeks, and I'll share that with you as well. So you guys have a wonderful afternoon and be blessed. Peace.